Now you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Did you hit record?
Yes, I'm just going to look at it again just to get visual confirmation. Look at that. Recording 28, 29, 30. Okay.
Welcome to the All the Books Show, the official podcast of the David A. Howe Public Library. We talk book news, author news, and literary news. I'm Eric Mickles.
I'm Nick Gunning.
And today is episode 100.
No.
Episode 200.
It's a milestone, but you got to keep going.
237.
That's not a milestone at all. That's
Really?
I don't know what that is. That's weird. No. Try again.
Well, what number is it, Nick?
250. You know, since we're not in my office, I don't have those little party favors that we usually do. Did that work, or did we just sound like Cardi B? I couldn't really tell.
I don't know how safe those are in this post-COVID universe
what?
either.
You know what? That's a good note. That is a good note, and I'm going to take that down. How are you, man?
Hold on.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah. 250 weeks. 250 weeks. That's what? That's like 5 years.
Gosh. Yes. Did we start 2015?
Yeah, I guess so. Yep.
Yeah.
August.
Started August 2015, right?
Yep. So we're not officially at 5 years yet, but in August. Yeah.
So 250.
I like how you had to wind it back up to get there. I think that was worth it. Let me ask you this, Eric. Looking back at these 250 episodes, do you have some favorites? Maybe some favorite.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Some favorite.
Stop! It's just out of control.
It's excited.
Oh my god.
It's excited.
But
listen, my question is, do you have some favorite episodes that we've done? Favorite interviews? Anything like that?
I mean, talking to Joe Haldeman's always a cool bragging moment for me.
That's
like,
true.
Oh, I talked to Joe Haldeman about the Forever War and all that stuff. And then, talking to comic book legends like Steve Englehart and J.M. DeMatteis.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with Shazam, but the Elliot S. Maggin interview was a lot of fun.
It was. Yeah, it really was.
It was fun to do. It was fun to listen to him.
Yeah. There's a lot of the interviews I've really liked. The Maggin one always comes to mind, Elliot S. Maggin. That was the big one for me because we were talking primarily about Shazam, but he was like the Superman author that I read the whole time I was growing up. And that issue of his with Superman and Superwoman coming from the future was my all-time favorite comic. So to talk with him and get his takes, not just on like the wacky history of Shazam, but on like what it means to like write Superman and like the core of Superman's character. I thought that was really it made the little kid in me really excited. I think the Justina Ireland interview that was more recent was probably the most like fun / chill interview that we've done. You know, it was just like really loose, and we talked about Ewoks a lot.
The Lauren James one was fun.
Yep, where we spoiled everything in that book. Yeah.
I think the first episode we did, we talked about bad cover art with Amy Kuhn.
Yes.
Is a favorite one of mine.
I was thinking about that too. There's a couple of those, but that is a lot of fun. I mean, I can't.
And maybe the first Lonely Hearts book club we did, where we found out what was it? He wanted to cry like a child, but he was a man.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good early one. It's going to be hard to top Mike Nesmith. I mean, I listened to Monkey's records like my entire life, so to just sit down and chat with Mike Nesmith for a half hour was pretty wild. So I mean that one's right up there. The Julia Spencer Fleming one, the ones that we did like with the crowd were a lot of fun too. So Julia Spencer Fleming, Wendy Corsi Staub was another good one. A lot of fun stuff in there. I think that our OC remix episodes are probably the ones that have the most listens or views. Don't you think?
That interview was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, Larry Ogi,
and but also that playlist episode.
Yeah,
was much fun. I mean, that's a long one too. That's one where people have to commit.
Yeah, that is true. That was a super long episode, but it was fun. Well, shall we get into episode 250 here? What have you been up to lately? You read anything good?
Yeah, are we bookmarking?
Let's do it. Let's open the books.
Do we say we're opening the bookmark?
We say we're opening the books, seeing where the bookmarks are.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What have I been reading?
Tell me.
What have I... Uncanny X-Men by Matthew Rosenberg, which was the Wolverine Cyclops ones. It was messy. A lot of the characters died. I did not really care for it. I wanted to like it more than I did. I read The New Mutants Dead Souls, which actually took place before his Uncanny X-Men run. And then I read Domino Hot Shots by Gail Simone, which is a 5-issue closing miniseries for her Domino run.
Okay.
So,
yeah, Marvel Comics, like Deadpool supporting character, right?
In the comics, she's much more of a Cable character.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So she has more. She's an X-Force character.
Okay.
The movies made her much more of a,
Yeah,
Deadpool.
I've probably read something with her in it, but I guess Deadpool 2 is probably where I know her the most from.
Yeah, she's been around for she's a Rob Liefeld character from the early 90s. And I finished One More Thing, Stories and Other Stories by B.J. Novak.
Hey, what'd you think?
It was good. So
yeah, I love that collection.
Does he have... I mean, he wrote the book without any pictures, right?
Yeah.
So, and you said your son liked that?
He does, yeah.
Is that it? Like, that picture book in this one?
I think so. I mean, outside of, like, television writing, I think those are the two. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I liked it.
Okay.
My wife loves it. I know you're a big fan of that one.
Yes.
So, I've never read Bossy Pants, so I think I might need to read Bossy Pants.
Oh, I've never read Bossy Pants either.
I need to, in case I'm ever on a plane and Tina Fey is next to me, and then I can be like, I read your book!
If you could get out that many words to Tina Fey, I'd give you $1 million.
Wow.
Yeah. That's how confident I am.
Let's see. Currently, I'm reading Good Omens by Terry Pratchett.
Okay.
And Neil Gaiman.
Right.
It just says Terry Pratchett on Goodreads, but it's Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman.
Yes.
I don't know. I've never read anything by Terry Pratchett before, so I don't know how much it's Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, but it's pretty funny. It's the angel and the demon are like friends on Earth. They like the way Earth is going, and now that it's time for the Antichrist, they're trying to stop the Antichrist from becoming the Antichrist because they just want the world to keep going on.
Right.
Because the demon likes how things are, and the angel likes owning his bookstore. So they're buddies.
This is the show. There's a show now, right, with David Tennant.
There is a show,
Michael Sheen.
David Tennant, Michael Sheen. I think your guy is in it.
John Hamm.
John Hamm is in it.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, I called him your guy.
No. Okay. I do like John Hamm. I'll own that.
I went on Overdrive and they had it there, so I downloaded. It's been a pretty fast read. It's good. I'm 36% done with it according to Goodreads. 135 pages. Yeah, it moves pretty quickly. And also, I'm in the process of reading House of X, Powers of X by Jonathan Hickman.
Okay. You don't like Jonathan Hickman? Do you remember that?
I don't like Jonathan Hickman, and I've been all the X-Men reading I've been doing for so long now has been with the drive to get to this House of X, Powers of X stuff, so I can be talking about the new stuff that's happening in X-Men.
Right.
But I've also been kind of worried because there's been a lot of changes and concepts and stuff that I'm like, I don't know if I want that in my X-Men, but I'm reading it anyway, and it's very, very different. There's if you read the last Uncanny X-Men issue that was right before this, there's no segue into it. You don't feel like one led into the other. So I guess if I end up hating this, and this is the future of X-Men, I can just kind of put it in my headcanon that not great Uncanny X-Men was the last X-Men, and now this is a reboot.
Okay.
So we'll see. Okay. But I've read the first 3 issues, and I'm liking it. If I can kind of depart myself, this is just a weird sci-fi take on the series, then I'm good. Mm-hmm. But there's definitely boy, these characters are acting real weird. So I don't know. I hate to stop new concepts from happening in the X-Men comics because I only care about traditional X-Men stuff.
Right.
So we'll see. Okay. I mean, this thing has created as much conversation as Grant Morrison's new X-Men run. So it's probably the first time since Grant Morrison's run that the X-Men have been so discussed like this.
Interesting.
Because I'm reading this on Marvel Unlimited.
Yes.
They've only just started putting the issues that follow this miniseries up, the rebooted line.
Okay.
X-Men and Marauders and all that stuff. So I have to decide if I'm going to wait until the trade length is out, or if I'll just read it as they put them out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Once that's happened, I mean, this will be the first time in a very long time, since 2015, that I was basically caught up with the X-Men.
That's cool. All right. Is that it for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I watched Titanic.
Oh, which you'd never seen before,
Titanic.
Correct?
I've never seen Titanic. Well, okay. One time when I was a kid, it was on HBO, and I had to like watch it and constantly change the channel and like wait to see if anybody was coming home because I wasn't allowed to watch Titanic.
Oh, is that
so
R?
I've seen,
or is it PG-13?
No, it's PG-13,
okay,
but I just wasn't allowed to watch it, probably because of the Kate Winslet sketch scene.
Sure.
But so I watched it in pieces, but I've never watched it all the way through, and I did, and it's mostly good.
I saw it in theaters, and I feel like maybe I have seen it since then, but I could not tell you the last time I watched that movie. I remember it being good. I remember liking it.
No, it's good. You know, I actually think having watched A Night to Remember fairly recently before this made me not like it as much.
Was the frame story as lame as I remember it?
No, and I think, you know what? It's not really that lame.
Okay.
I think to get to the ending, which it's still, you know, I didn't care so much for the love story, but the scene at the end with the staircase where everybody who died in the Titanic.
That's a good scene. Yeah.
That scene got me choked up and everything, teary-eyed. I think without the frame story, you don't really get that. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get to that moment. Yeah. So, and Bill Paxton is in it. And
Bill Paxton. Good. Yeah.
Paxton, I don't know why. I mean, Cameron and him were friends. It's weird to like think of Paxton as like a blonde surfer dude, Titanic researcher with one earring.
Yeah.
But there it was. So anyway, I think it still holds up. But I think if you want to see like the spectacle, but also learn, watching the 50s film A Night to Remember is a pretty good way to go. They deal with like the California as well. Okay. The whole ship that was like in visual range of the Titanic that did not respond to their distress because they like turned off the radio or just like ignored them. Like they were trying to do Morse code with light, like lanterns. They were that close. Yeah.
I read a book several years ago, just a mystery novel called The Titanic Murders by Max Allan Collins. And it was about supposedly an actual murder mystery author was on the Titanic. And the story was, it also had a frame story, and it was that they found there was a body in like one of the holds that was clearly like dead before the ship went down. And so it sort of like goes backwards trying to figure out that mystery. And I really liked that. That was a lot of fun. That's called The Titanic Murders, Max Allan Collins. So that was a good one.
The one issue, I mean, I'm sure there is, but with The Night to Remember, the ship doesn't split in half.
Oh.
Because it wasn't.
That was a more recent understanding, wasn't it?
Once they found the wreck in like the 80s.
Yeah.
They realized it had split in half, but like half the people had said they heard it split in half, and the other half were like it was just the engines and the holes and everything inside crashing. So no one was really sure what happened. So, though apparently in James Cameron, the ship tilts a little too high.
Oh,
like the break is a bit too dramatic. So anyway, 1997's Titanic.
Yeah, wow.
There's my review of the second highest grossing movie of all time.
Finally.
Yeah, so
finally.
Tomorrow I'll watch Avatar.
Yeah, oh yeah. You know, that's a funny transition into a book that I just finished. Are you ready for that?
I guess, yeah.
I've been reading Theft by Finding, Diaries by David Sedaris, and it covers 1977 to 2002. And he was talking about, he's at this, in the 90s, he's like going to a bunch of movies and stuff while he's sort of isolated in this town. And he talks about how he keeps seeing this, and this is prior to Titanic coming out. He's talking about how they keep like cramming this Titanic trailer down everybody's throat. And he's like, who do they think is going to see this movie? Which is pretty funny. That's all. Like that was prior to seeing it. David Sedaris is like, no one's ever going to watch this movie.
That I was reading about that the first trailer, because Cameron took forever he was so behind schedule and everything that rushed other movies into its summer date because it was supposed to come out in June or July, that the first trailer, the effects weren't done. So they just showed like a pretty crappy trailer.
Oh, really?
So I wonder if that's the one that Sedaris was,
probably.
It's just like a kind of a Vaseline coated lens of the Titanic.
Yeah.
So that's funny. Yeah.
But like I was saying last week with this one, it is diary entries, so it's served best by short little bursts of reading or listening to the audiobook as I did. But I do recommend that for a Sedaris fan. I finished the Book of Longings by Sue Monk Kidd. So this was about a woman named Anna who ends up married to Jesus, like biblical Jesus. And it does a really nice job of weaving together like historical facts and biblical stories and then this completely original story into a way that feels very believable. Like it was a very compelling book, and I was really curious about how it was going to happen. Every once in a while, it would start to feel just a touch like Lion King 1.5, where like they're commenting on like, oh, look at that thing over there, and it's like a well-known Bible story, So there's a few moments where I thought, but overall,
who's the Timon and Pumbaa?
I guess that would be Jesus' wife Anna and her aunt.
Are the Timon and
Pumbaa, I guess. But no, it's just in certain situations, it didn't feel like it 100% nailed the like casually mentioning like big biblical stories. But for the most part, it really did. And even the parts where I felt it was a little clunky didn't take away from the enjoyment of it. So I thought this book was really good. And it'll be interesting to see if it gets a lot of blowback. I haven't really heard anything about it, but
Yeah, this is, I think you talking about it's the most I've heard about it.
I mean, it's been on the bestseller list, People are reading it. Sue Monk Kidd is a well-known author, so,
Yeah.
I haven't heard much, though. I also finished a book called Why Fish Don't Exist by Lulu Miller. This was a weird, unpredictable book that's sort of it's a half memoir, half talking about a man who discovered like 1/5 of all of the fish species in the world. And it managed to like toe that line really well, where it would sort of meld back into her private life and then go back into like her historical research. So it was unexpected and constantly surprised me in which direction that it went. But that was a cool read. I've read a lot of comics, like while we're stuck home, and I have both apps now. I've just been kind of bouncing back and forth between Marvel and DC, so I won't get into all of them. I did finish Wolverine First Class, a series started by Fred Van Lente, who we had on the show. He was here mostly to talk about Spider-Man, though. You interviewed him about Wolverine and the X-Men and X-Men Noir over on your other podcast previously on X-Men. But I had only read maybe 2 of these volumes at the time.
But he hates the X-Men.
But he hates the X-Men, yeah. And this series, so it starts with Fred Van Lente, who writes 3 of 5 volumes. Peter David comes in and writes the last 2, and I gotta say, I prefer Van Lente's. Because you remember this series. I mean, this is where he makes Wolverine like the ultimate hockey dad, and like he and Kitty Pryde have a fun relationship. By the time you get to the Peter David era, you can tell that he's trying to just write an X-Men book without the characters, and so it goes from feeling like a unique little, sort of all ages fun thing to feeling like just a slap together X-Men book. So I think it starts better than it ends. Yeah. Then I went back and finished out another series that I'd been reading, which is the Rebirth era of Cyborg, DC Comics character Cyborg.
Yeah, so you won. You're getting your Snyder's cut.
Yeah, I guess so.
Congratulations.
I guess that I'm not the one who wanted that, though. I would take that Cyborg movie. I thought that I was so skeptical when they announced that, but I thought that the guy, what is his name? Is it Ray Fisher who plays Cyborg in that? Okay. I thought he did such a good job playing Cyborg in that movie that I would be all about a Cyborg movie now, but that's never going to happen. What'd you say?
He's the Cyborg cut. Did you see those things about Henry Cavill might be coming back as Superman now?
I did hear that, yeah.
It was so funny. Somebody shared a tweet. It was one picture was Henry Cavill talking about how he's been spending quarantine painting Warhammer figurines.
Yeah.
And the next one was a picture of him coming back as Superman. And the text for the tweet was, "My dude just realized how expensive this hobby is."
Yeah, I did see that. That's pretty funny. I'm surprised by that. But also, I mean, HBO Max, all of the...
That's the thing. I wonder if that's
advertising. A lot of advertising for that has been really heavy on the DC movies. So
yeah, people are wondering, like, is he coming back for maybe Aquaman 2 or the next Shazam film? But I wonder if it's just him coming back to do the stuff for the Snyder cut.
It's possible. Yeah. But Momoa's also, Jason Momoa, who plays Aquaman in the films, has also been really vocal about wanting Henry Cavill back. Like, I've heard several interviews with him saying, no, he'll definitely be back. So him showing up in Aquaman wouldn't surprise me either, because I think that's something.
I think the only one who'd surprise me at this point is Affleck, and I feel like I'd be surprised either way.
Yeah.
Like if he doesn't come back or if he does come back.
Yeah.
All the power's in Affleck's hand, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, if they're making this, if you're not familiar with what the Snyder Cut is, basically, Zack Snyder was making essentially a trilogy with Batman v Superman, Justice League Part 1, and Justice League Part 2, which never happened. Then when Joss Whedon comes over and redoes Justice League, takes out a lot of the stuff that was setting up a sequel and makes it goofy, I guess. I don't really know what he did. Now, Snyder's cut is finally going to be out on HBO Max, but Snyder's cut was very much going to be a part 1 of 2, so it's just kind of a puzzling thing to do.
Yeah, because it's going to end on a cliffhanger.
They're making an open-ended cliffhanger, which coincidentally is how my Cyborg Rebirth era ends. Oh,
no.
So it's 3 volumes written primarily by John Semper Jr. Have you read his stuff? He's all over the place. He's got a lot of comic history. And it's decent. It's a weird series. Like, I remember volume 2, half of the book is like somebody mobilizing rats and cyborgs being like eaten by rats. And then in the next issue, he's stuck in like an 8-bit video game. So it was just like tonally very strange. The 3rd volume actually was pretty cool, though. He's trapped in like an alternate digital world, and he teams up with the alt Beast Boy in there to try to figure out how to get out. I liked that. And then Kevin Graveau takes over the series and writes a couple issues that are set in Africa, which seemed to me like it was meant to be sort of a relaunch of the Cyborg character. And then the 4th volume was canceled, and only 3 issues were actually made. And Marv Wolfman, who created Cyborg back in the 80s, I guess, 70s, 80s,
yes,
wrote those 3 issues. But issue 3 is like coming up in the next issue, and just completely is a dead halt. So. Not a great ending for the series, but overall, I think it's a pretty decent showcase for the character, and certainly with being reminded by HBO Max and all that of how much I liked Cyborg in those movies, I would love to see a Cyborg movie, and he's pretty cool in Doom Patrol as well. Right. So the character's been getting a lot of play lately, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
I'm currently reading God Help the Child by Toni Morrison. Good so far. I'm listening to this on audiobook, and I read Song of Solomon by her years back. This is the first time I'm listening to it on the audiobook, and she actually reads it herself, and her reading of it is so good, that it's really, I'm really like wanting to listen to it. So I'm enjoying that so far. That's what I'm currently reading. I watched a bunch of stuff. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
I watched The Lovebirds Netflix movie with Kumail Nanjiani and Issa Rae. Have you seen this? It's pretty good.
I must have saw stuff about it.
But... It's about so they're a couple who is at the point where they're like breaking up when they stumble on like a murder, and then they don't trust to go to the police, and so they decide that they want to like solve the mystery themselves so that they don't get blamed for it, and hilarity ensues after that. They do a good job of making the mystery feel real, making it feel like a genuine mystery that you're trying to figure out. And, there's genuine menace throughout it. But it also, those 2 actors together are just really funny. So I liked it quite a bit. We binged the series Never Have I Ever, which was really good. That's we watched the whole season in one sitting. So that's twice in my life that's happened. This was written by Mindy Kaling. Or, she writes several episodes and is the executive producer and all that. Really funny, really good. A lot of great acting in it. It cracked us up. We were completely hooked, so I'm ready for season 2.
Okay.
We also finished season 2 of Dead to Me with Christina Applegate and Linda Cardellini. Again, a very, very twisty and compelling show. You keep thinking, certainly they can't go on this way, and they find another way to make it work. So I haven't heard. Have you heard? Is there a season 3 of this show?
I haven't really been following its thing. Okay. Season 2 surprised me.
Yeah. I hope there's a season 3. They certainly set up a season 3. So we'll see where that goes. But we finished that, and we started Black AF, made by Kenya Barris, who did like Blackish and all that. It's him and Rashida Jones. Very funny. It's just really, those both of them, their comedy styles together, I think work really well, and it killed us. So we're really liking that as well. You ready to get into some book news?
Woo!
I think that we should start with the Nebulas. Nick and Eric present the award.
Best novella is Anxiety in the Dizziness of Freedom by Ted Chiang. The Haunting of Tramcar 015 by P. Jalais Clark. Her Silhouette Drawn in Water by Valyar Kaftan. The Deep by River Solomon, David Diggs, William Houston Hudson, and Jonathan Snipes. And Catfish Lullaby by A.C. Wise. The winner is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El Matar and Max Gladstone.
Well, that's a very compelling title. I like that.
Yeah. And where was it? The Outstanding Dramatic Presentation, the Ray Bradbury Nebula Award for Outstanding Dramatic Presentation, went to Good Omens, Hard Times.
Hey, we were just talking about that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. You want to say the other nominees in there?
Sure. Captain Marvel, the movie. Wow, so these are for 2019. That feels like
I know
forever.
It really does. Yeah.
The Mandalorian, The Child, Watchmen, A God Walks into a Bar, Avengers Endgame, Russian Doll, The Way Out, and again, Good Omens, Hard Times.
Still nothing for Discovery. Star Trek Discovery is never nominated for these things. Do you think it's not like trendy enough to nominate a Star Trek?
I don't know.
I just wonder. I mean, there's really solid sci-fi in there, but all right. Best Novelette. Nominees include A Strange Uncertain Light by G.V. Anderson, For He Can Creep by Simone Carroll, His Footsteps Through Darkness and Light by Mimi Mondal, The Blur in the Corner of Your Eye by Sarah Pinsker, The Archronology of Love by Carolyn M. Joachim, and the winner, Carpe Glitter by Kat Rambo. Is that no, that sounds familiar to me. Do you know that author?
Yeah, I've seen First Blood.
that's John Rambo, but I understand why you're
okay, that's my confusion. Yeah.
Let's look at the best short story. I usually read all of these, but I tell you what, my quarantine brain, I didn't have it into me this time. I have read 3 of them, and actually the one that has won was my favorite of the 3 that I read. So do you want to say the nominees for this one?
The Dead in Their Uncontrollable Power by Karen Osborne, and Now His Lordship is Laughing by Shiv Ramdas. 10 excerpts from annotated bibliography of the Cannibal Women of Ratnabar Island by Nebeda Sen. A Catalog of Storms by Fran Wild. And How the Trick is Done by A.C. Wise. The winner goes to Give the Family My Love by A.T. Greenblatt.
So this one is a lot of fun. I'd also read Catalog of Storms and How the Trick is Done, but I felt like of those 3, this was the most successful. The basic premise of this is an astronaut is on an alien planet, and she is there to get knowledge to save the Earth. And it's all in correspondence to a friend of hers back home named Saul. And it's a 6-month gap in when she sends a message and when he gets the message. So it starts with her on this trek to even get to this like library on this other planet. That's like the first test, if she can get to the library. And then once she get there, it's sifting through like just an endless amount of information, trying to find what it is that's going to take her down the right path that will give some hope to Earth. And as she gets more and more engrossed in the things going on there, in the different material that's at her fingertips, you got to get a sense that she's getting more and more detached from life on Earth. And I'll just leave it at that. But I thought that it was cool. I thought it was really well done. I liked it a lot.
I've read something by Fran Wild, the one who wrote A Catalog of Storms. I read Updraft a while ago. Okay. Didn't love it.
I didn't like this one so much either. It had a very clear style. You know what I mean? Right. Like it wasn't. It stood out in that way. Like you could tell that she really had a mastery of like what she was doing there. It didn't necessarily appeal to me, but it was interesting.
Right. She won though. Riverland, her newer book, won for the Nebula Award for middle grade and young adult fiction.
Nice. And what are some of the other nominees in there?
Dragon Pearl by Yoon-Ha Lee, Catfishing on Catnet by Naomi Kritzer, Sal and Gabby Break the Universe by Carlos Hernandez, Cog by Greg Van Ekot, and Pea Sprout Chen, Battle of the Champions by Henry Lean. Game writing, was this here last time?
Actually, I was wondering that myself. I don't recall it. I guess I wouldn't put money on it either way, but I don't remember this.
Well, nominated was Fate Accessibility Toolkit, Disco Elysium, The Magician's Workshop, Outer Wilds, but the winner went to The Outer Worlds.
Is this the game you always try to get me to play?
Yeah, well, I mean, used to.
Oh, you stopped. You gave up.
Yeah, I've stopped trying to get you to
I'm
play
a
it
lost
now.
cause. You understand?
So,
okay.
Yeah, a lot of people are feeling that game does Fallout better than what Fallout does anymore.
Oh, okay.
So, and then the best novel.
Do it.
Marquis of Cain by Charles E. Gannon. The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Haro. A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martin. Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silver Moreno. Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. And A Song for a Day by Sarah Pinsker is the winner.
Song for a New Day. Thank you very
Song
much.
for a New Day. Yeah, sorry. It's not just a day. It is a new day. I'm unfamiliar with this.
Well, then allow me to read you a synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
In this captivating science fiction novel from award-winning author, public gatherings are illegal, making concerts impossible, except for those willing to break the law for the love of music and for one chance at human connection. So is this just Space Footloose?
Yes, I suppose.
Okay. In the before,
Space Footloose, yeah.
When the government...
We're a planet that can't dance. Well, I'm from Dance-topia planet.
Did we feature this on a Sexy New Book Club? Because this is sounding really familiar to me.
Is this the time travel?
I don't know. In the before, when the government didn't prohibit large public gatherings, Loose Cannon was on top of the world. One of her songs had just taken off and she was on her way to becoming a star. Now in the after, terror attacks and deadly viruses have led the government to ban concerts and Luce's connection to the world. Her music, her purpose is closed off forever. She does what she has to do. She performs in illegal concerts to a small but passionate community, always evading the law. Rosemary Laws barely remembers the times before. She spends her days in hood space, helping customers order all of their goods online for drone delivery. No physical contact with humans needed. By lucky chance, she finds a new job and a new calling, discover amazing musicians, and bring their concerts to everyone via virtual reality. The only catch is that she'll have to do something she's never done before and go out in public. Find the illegal concerts and bring musicians into the limelight they deserve. But when she sees how the world could actually be, that won't be enough. Wow. Timely much? I mean, it's science fact? Is that is this even science fiction technically?
Who would have thought that Footloose would be the movie of our revolution?
I don't know. I don't know.
Footloose kind of sucks. I don't know if that's considered to be the truth these days, but the 80s film Footloose isn't good. It's not fun. It's boring, and there's no dancing until the very end, and it's just I don't get it.
Wow.
And even what's his name, who was from Footloose, Kevin Bacon.
Yes,
he was saying about the new remake of Footloose, they had better dancing in that movie because they got actual dancers.
Wow.
So I don't know. You haven't seen Footloose?
I didn't think today was going to be the day when you had your sights set on the film Footloose, but it's sorry that it ever woke up this morning.
I just don't get it. I don't get how, one, it blew up, and two, people still consider it a classic.
Yeah.
So
well,
that's it.
They do.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see what else is going on. Instead of the New York Times bestseller list this week, we're going to look at a book list that Penguin Random House put out on their The Read Down. This is books to read by contemporary black authors. Eric, you want to give us a top 10 on that list?
The top 10. Well-Read Black Girl by Glory Adim, an inspiring collection of essays by black women writers, curated by the founder of the popular book club Well-Read Black Girl, on the importance of recognizing ourselves in literature. Such a Fun Age. We've talked about this one.
Yes, we have.
By Kylie Reed, a striking, surprising debut novel from exhilarating new voice. Such a Fun Age is a page-turning, big-hearted story about race, privilege, set around a young black babysitter, her well-intentioned employee, and a surprising connection that threatens to undo them both.
Number 3.
The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Dare, a powerful, emotional debut novel in the unforgettable voice of a young Nigerian woman who is trapped in a life of servitude but determined to get an education so that she can escape and choose her own future. I Almost Forgot About You by Terry McMillan, best-selling author of How Stella Got Her Groove Back and Waiting to Exhale, is back to the inspiring story of a woman who shakes things up in her life to find greater meaning.
Have you seen either of those movies?
No.
Me neither.
Have I seen How Stella Got Her Groove Back?
No, I haven't.
I did not.
Okay.
I don't think that was I think that's another movie I probably wasn't allowed to see when I was...
You could only watch 5-minute segments of that movie in case your mom came in.
Yeah. Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. An unexpected teenage pregnancy pulls together two families from different social classes and exposes the private hopes, disappointments, and longings that can bind or divide us for each other. From the National Book Award winning author of Another Brooklyn and Brown Girl Dreaming. Homecoming.
I've read several of her picture books to my son. I always enjoy them.
Homecoming by Ya Gassi. Homecoming follows the parallel paths of two sisters and their descendants through 8 generations from the Gold Coast to the plantations of Mississippi. I screwed up saying Mississippi there, but that's the word I meant to say. From the American Civil War to the Jazz Age Harlem. Ya Gassi's extraordinary novel illuminates slavery's troubled legacy, both to those who were taken and those who stayed, and shows how the memory of captivity has been inscribed in the soul of our nation. What is Not Yours is Not Yours by Helen Oyami. Helen Oyami's tale spans multiple times and landscapes as they tease boundaries between coexisting realities. Is a key a gate, a gift, or an invitation?
This, I'm pretty sure, was shortlisted for, I want to say, the National Book Award. I don't remember, but I remember talking about this one because, again, I put a hold on it, and it didn't get to me in time.
Drinking Coffee Elsewhere by ZZ Packer. With penetrating insight, ZZ Packer helps us see the world with clearer vision. Drinking Coffee Elsewhere is striking performance, fresh, versatile, captivating. I've said coffee 3 times. Did we summon your wife?
Yeah, she's here. She's saying, where is it?
Loving Day by Matt Johnson, a frequently hilarious, surprisingly moving story about blacks and whites, fathers and daughters, the living and the dead. Loving Day celebrates the wonders and opposites bound in a love. I had to take a moment because when I heard living and the dead, I assumed it was a zombie book, but then I was like, oh, wait, no. That's just how you would talk about the living and the dead.
Yeah.
Behold the Dreamers by Mbolo Mbu, a compulsively readable debut novel about marriage, immigration, class, race, and the trapdoors in the American dream, the unforgettable story of a young Cameroonian couple making a new life in New York just as the Great Recession upends the economy.
All right, this was an Oprah's book club, as you'll recall. All right, thank you. So that list, and there's many more on the list too, we'll put that out on Twitter, but that was put together by Penguin Random House, so check that out, and check out any and all of these books. Speaking of books, Eric, are you ready to get into our main segment?
Yep, where we talk about the movie Clueless.
We don't have music for this. Are we going to talk about Clueless? Because I have a confession to make to you right here, right now. I've never seen Clueless.
Oh, well, I had never seen it. My wife showed it. It was her pick. It's funny. Even though it was made in 1995, it feels like it was made now as a parody of the 90s. The things
funny.
it like comments on and focuses on, it makes it feel like they were making it. They're like, this is going to be silly in 15 years. They were right. It almost makes you think somebody hated Alicia Silverstone and was trying to kill her career with Batman and Robin because she's so good in Clueless.
Yeah.
And absolutely miscast as Batgirl.
Oh, sure.
It's too bad. She should have gone on to do lots more movies like that. But anyway, we're not really talking about Clueless, and we do have music for this. This seems like a Through the Ages kind of.
You're right.
Intro.
I love that theme. Let's do it. Lulled me right to sleep. Our topic today was chosen by one Eric Mickles, and that is to take a look at some of the books that we think might be classics for the next generation.
The new classics. It's both Crystal Pepsi and New Coke. And I think both of those are very successful.
Yes. Oh, sure. People loved them. So anyway, I put together a list here of, it's a combination of things from other lists, from things that have been popular in our library. And 250! Tried to stick to things that seem like they're going to have longevity, might be some things that, it might be on reading lists in the future, that sort of thing. So it's a mix of all different things. And so I just want to get this one right out of the way to start with because, I've been critical of this book and I just want to get it out of the way. And that is Where the Crawdads Are. Where the Crawdads Sing.
Where the Crawdads Sing. We know where they are.
Where the Crawdads Sing. By Adelia Owens, came out in 2018. So listen, we've had a lot of, since in the 250 episodes we've been doing this podcast, we've had a lot of books that have popped up on the New York Times bestseller list and have stayed a very long time. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, for example, comes to mind. The reason why I think that Crawdads is going to outlast some of the other ones that had a similar impact when it first came out is because it is unique. Its setting is unique. I think the protagonist is not one that you're going to find in a lot of different books, whereas something like The Nightingale is kind of a soapy World War II novel, and there are That's a genre within itself. There are many, many of those, many that are better than the Nightingale, many that I think have legs long beyond what Nightingale will have. So that's not just throw shade at the Nightingale. I'm just saying this Crawdads, I think, because of its unique story, its unique heroine, coupled with the fact that it is an immensely readable book. So I wouldn't put this on a top 10 personal list. I read it, and I read it very quickly, and I was very intrigued the whole time. I think it's one that you have to sort of be like, okay, sure, I'll buy it for the purpose of this book. Yes. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's without its flaws, but I understand fully why it has had the popularity that it's had this whole time. And for that reason, I think this is going to be one that, we're going to see popping back. I could see, in like 40 years, there's going to be a contemporary looking paperback cover for this one, and people are going to rediscover it again. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know, I'll give you just a synopsis here. For years, rumors of the Marsh Girl have haunted Barkley Cove, a quiet town on the North Carolina coast. So in late 1969, when handsome Chase Andrews is found dead, the locals immediately suspect Kaya Clark, the so-called Marsh Girl. But Kaya's not what they say. Sensitive and intelligent, she has survived for years alone in the marsh that she calls home, finding friends in the gulls and lessons in the sand. Then the time comes when she yearns to be touched and loved. When two young men from town become intrigued by her wild beauty, Kaya opens herself to new life until the unthinkable happens. Perfect for fans of Barbara Kingsolver and Karen Russell, according to Goodreads. I don't know if I agree with that. Where the Crawdad Sings is at once an exquisite ode to the natural world, a heartbreaking coming-of-age story, and a surprising tale of possible murder. Owens reminds us that we are forever shaped by the children we once were, and that we're all subject to the beautiful and violent secrets that nature keeps. So this book was selected for Reese Witherspoon's book club. It was one of Barnes & Noble's best books of 2018. By December of 2019... as of December 2019, the book had sold over 4.5 million copies, more print copies in 2019 than any other adult title in fiction or nonfiction.
Goodness.
Was number one for 2019 and was on Amazon's list of most sold books in fiction. So this has a lot of bragging rights. So this is probably not one that's ever going to be on your list.
Probably not.
You don't like mysteries?
I don't like mysteries. I loathe mysteries. Okay. I realized there was something we watched recently. I'm like, oh, right, I don't like mysteries. Yeah. I tend to be a little bit more picky with like my contemporary fiction.
Okay. The next one here, Zadie Smith's White Teeth, which came out in 2000. The only Zadie Smith that I'm familiar with is On Beauty, which we did for a book club a while back, a modern take on Howard's End. So I've not read White Teeth, but it was one that, as I researched this, showed up on many, many lists. Did you bump up against this one as you were looking?
I don't recognize that title at all.
All right. Well, it won multiple honors, including the 2000 James Tate Black Memorial Prize for Fiction, the 2000 White Bread Book Award in category of Best First Novel, the Guardian's First Book Award, and it was on their list of Best of the 21st Century.
You know what I call the White Bread Award?
What?
The Nicholas Hoult Award.
Your vendetta against Nicholas Hoult.
He wins that every year.
Does he?
He's always the winner. Yeah, Lifetime Achievement Award for.
He seems like a nice actor who's done nothing to you.
White Teeth by. Yeah, I don't even recognize this cover.
Okay.
Just all red, very bold.
Well, it was very popular, and I'm not done with the awards yet, because it also won the Commonwealth Writers' First Prize Book, the Betty Trask Award. Time magazine included in its list of 100 best English language novels from 1923 to 2005. So the synopsis for this is, at the center of this invigorating novel are two unlikely friends, Archie Jones and Samad Iqbal, hapless veterans of World War II. Archie and Samad and their families become agents of England's irrevocable transformation. A second marriage to Clara Bowden, a beautiful albeit tooth-challenged Jamaican half his age, quite literally gives Archie a second lease on life and produces Irie, a knowing child whose personality doesn't quite match her name, Jamaican for no problem. Samad's late-in-life arranged marriage, he had to wait for his bride to be born, produces twin sons whose separate paths confound Iqbal's every effort to direct them, and a renewed, if selective, submission to his Islamic faith. Set against London's racial and cultural tapestry, venturing across the former empire and into the past as it barrels towards the future, White Teeth revels in the ecstatic hodgepodge of modern life, flirting with disaster, confounding expectations, and embracing the comedy of daily existence. Zadie Smith is a author that I've long been interested in. On Beauty, as I said, was the only one that I've actually picked up and read myself. But this sounds intriguing to me, and she frequently pops up on when you're looking at best contemporary authors. that sort of thing. This is a name that you'll see over and over again. Next on my list is another one that we've talked about quite a bit, and that is The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead.
You're not a huge fan of everything that's becoming the new classic, Nick.
Well, I think the thing is with The Underground Railroad, I went in with very specific expectations. I guess I thought that it was going to be more sci-fi than it actually ended up being. And while, I don't think that it wasn't my dry reading of the book that moved me towards this one so much as other people's response to it and how much praise and attention it's been able to get. And I think, it's a good reminder that not all books are written for my perspective, and not all books are written specifically for me to enjoy or not. And this book, I think, is one that has been able to transcend lists of things that are popular and things that are critically acclaimed and, given sort of a scholarly status. This is a rare example of a book that's been able to do both. And I think you can likely say the same of its follow-up, The Nickel Boys, which came out in 2019 and just won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. The Underground Railroad was the winner of the Pulitzer Prize, so that's 2, and the National Book Award, the #1 New York Times bestseller. Colson Whitehead it's a magnificent tour de force chronicling a young slave's adventure as she makes a desperate bid for freedom in the antebellum South. And what's unique about the book is that it reimagines the Underground Railroad as a literal railroad underground.
Right.
And as each stop she makes, it's sort of like coming into a new world of different perspectives. And, this character is really put through the ringer, and you see things from all sides, and it just is, it is an upsetting book too. I mean, anytime you're confronted with the horrors of slavery, it's a difficult and challenging book to read for that reason. And I think it does handle that very well. And has continued to remain on top 10 lists and was just as popular in paperback. So certainly one that's here to stay, as is The Nickel Boys. So if you're not familiar with The Nickel Boys, this was based on a real story of a reform school in Florida.
It was on that list that we were just, Penguin's list.
Was it
further down than the 10 we were listing off.
Not surprising. The real story of a reform school in Florida that operated for 111 years and warped the lives of thousands of children. The Nickel Boys is a devastating, driven narrative that showcases a great American novelist writing at the height of his powers. It's a pretty powerful 1-2 punch, I think, with The Underground Railroad and Nickel Boys as a follow-up, because both of them, I think, did a very similar thing in that they reached your average reader, as well as, the upper echelons of what's considered to be, a scholarly important work. So, that's a pretty powerful back-to-back catalog there. Next, let's talk Life of Pi. You're familiar with this one?
I like the movie.
Okay.
I thought it should have won instead of Argo that year. For Best Picture.
I didn't think Argo was Ben Affleck's strongest anyway. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Jan Martel's Life of Pi came out in 2001. This one I feel like you're going to see on reading lists for decades to come, wouldn't you say?
Probably.
Yeah. So Life of Pi is a Canadian philosophical novel by Jan Martel, published in 2001. The protagonist, Pi, is an Indian boy from Pondicherry who explores issues of spirituality and metaphysics from an early age. He survives 227 days after a shipwreck while stranded on a lifeboat in the Pacific Ocean with a Bengal tiger, which raises questions about the nature of reality and how it is perceived and told.
Yeah.
So it has sold more than 10 million copies. It was one of those books that was rejected by at least 5 publishers before it was accepted. Published in Canada in September of 2001. Won the Man Booker Prize for Fiction. It was chosen as Canada Reads for 2003. Won the Boak Prize, a South African Novel Award, and in 2004 it won the Asian Pacific American Award for Literature and Best Adult Fiction. And as you said, it was adapted into a feature film by Ang Lee in 2012. Tell me a little bit about the movie.
It's very good. It's just one of those movies that's more, I don't know, it's more experiential in a lot of ways. It's a movie that feels like it's focusing on how to make you feel, as opposed to maybe like telling just a straightforward story. So, and it's got a tiger in it, the whole movie.
Have you ever been? I mean, it's a book that's
I've never been on a boat with a tiger.
One of those.
No.
Oh, you really haven't?
No.
Okay. All right. It seems like it'd be scary.
Yeah, it does. It does seem scary, but they kind of work out a good relationship, I think.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
Next on the list, I have a Joyce Carol Oates here, and this was kind of a hard one because I think you could make a case for several of her books, like Garden of Earthly Delights, or Them, or Blonde. But ultimately, I think We Were the Mulvaneys is probably going to be the one that continues to resurface. The story is one that, just remains tragic and topical. It's about violence towards a young girl, and the stigma of that makes it so that she ends up being the sort of embarrassment to her family, and it just destroys her life, and she has to just cope with that really on her own. So it is a very sad and difficult book to read, as many Joyce Carol Oates books are. But without giving too much away, I think this manages a hopefulness that you don't often see in Joyce Carol Oates books, and I think it's stronger for that. This was featured on Oprah's Book Club in January of 2001, 5 years after it came out. It was made into a movie with Blythe Danner the following year. Very good book, one we did as a book club for the library here. And like I said, I think it's one that's going to keep coming back, and is just very well done. Next on my list, I have Jesmyn Ward's Sing Unburied Sing. So this came out in 2017. A searing and profound Southern Odyssey by National Book Award winner Jesmyn Ward, in her first novel since her National Book Award winning Salvage the Bones, which was another one that was super popular, and we were hearing about this everywhere. The singular American writer brings the archetypal road novel into rural 21st century America. Drawing on Toni Morrison, Faulkner, the Odyssey, and the Old Testament, Ward gives us an epochal story, a journey through Mississippi's past and present that is both an intimate portrait of a family and an epic tale of hope and struggle. Ward is a major American writer, multiply awarded and universally lauded, and in Sing Unburied Sing, she is at the height of her powers. It was the winner of the National Book Award. It was a finalist for the Kirkus Prize, finalist for the Andrew Carnegie Medal, and the New York Times Top 10 Best Book of the Year.
Woo.
Next on the list, I have Toni Morrison's Beloved, which came out in 1987. It won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 1988, was a finalist for the 1987 National Book Award, and was adapted to a 1998 movie of the same name, starring Oprah Winfrey. A New York Times survey of writers and literary critics ranked it as the best work of American fiction from 1981 to 2006. This is another that is on most lists when you're talking about, the best novels of the last half century. Beloved by Toni Morrison shows up many, many times here. I've not read this one. Like I said, I've read Song of Solomon, and I'm currently reading one of her later books. But I've not read Beloved, nor have I seen the movie. Are you familiar with this movie?
Beloved? No.
Yeah. Eric, talk to me about this next one. Michael Chabon's Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay came out in 2000.
Yeah, didn't I, was I not reading this when we were doing the podcast?
Yeah, you were.
I was. Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's basically a fictional retelling of Jason, the Superman creators, not Jason.
Oh, Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster.
Yes. In Cavalier and Clay are the ones who are the writer and author of The Escapist, who is a superhero comic creation of theirs. And it's just kind of about their contract with little asides about the comic history and the history around New York and the world at this time. But it deals with a lot of other different issues, relationships, faith, and all that. So it's not just about that. I definitely preferred it when it was just like, boy, making a superhero comic in the 40s. It was like, cool, but there's a lot going on there. The concept of them being these comic creators in the style of the Superman creators is kind of more the floorboard for the rest of the book.
This one stands out in my mind because, this won the Pulitzer Prize in 2001 and was just everywhere. 2001 is when I started working in libraries, my first library job. And so this book was often requested, and it was everywhere, and I was always intrigued by it because the cover was very comic booky, and I was just always so intrigued by this book. So it's one that stands out in my mind as sort of connected to when I first started working in libraries. But it came out to almost unanimous praise. I mean, it was really one of those books that was not divisive. Like, everybody was on board for this book, it felt like at the time. So it was nominated for the 2000 National Book Critics Circle Award and the PEN/Faulkner Award for Fiction. And in 2007, the New York's Review of Book called it his magnum opus. This is another that you're going to see on list after list of what a contemporary classic is. So for that reason, it's here. And I know this was one that you enjoyed quite a bit as well, Eric. Have you read any of his other books?
I'm in the middle of, or at the beginning of, the Yiddish Policeman Union.
Okay. So far, so good?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a physical copy of it at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
So...
Yeah, I haven't read these. I have seen Star Trek Picard, and I'm not a fan, but I think that this book would probably be better. Let's see, I got 2 more on my list here. Anthony Doerr's All the Light We Cannot See, which came out in 2014. So at the top of this, I was talking about The Nightingale and how there's many a better World War II books. Here's an example.
Mm-hmm.
This won the 2015 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction and the 2015 Andrew Carnegie Medal for Excellence in Fiction.
Right.
So the plot of this, Marie Laurey lives in Paris near the Museum of Natural History, where her father works. When she's 12, the Nazis occupy Paris, and father and daughter flee to the walled citadel of Saint-Malo, where Marie Laurey's reclusive great-uncle lives in a tall house by the sea. With them, they carry what might be the museum's most valuable and dangerous jewel. Elsewhere, in a mining town in Germany, Werner Pfennig, an orphan, grows up with his younger sister. Enchanted by a crude radio they find that brings them news and stories from places they've never seen or imagined, Werner becomes an expert at building and fixing these crucial new instruments and is enlisted to use his talent to track down the resistance. Deftly interweaving the lives of Marie Laurey and Werner, Dürer illuminates the ways against all odds. People try to be good to one another. What is so compelling about this book is many things, but one of them is the way that you're seeing these horrible events unfold from 2 people who start young and innocent on very different sides of it. The way Werner goes through and has his spirit and his resolve broken, being sort of pushed into a way of thinking and a lifestyle that is the opposite of what he wants, is so heartbreaking that you just feel it every step of the way. This was a very powerful book, and this is one that I see popping up on to-read lists, possibly at schools, but I think that one's going to be around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
My final on the list here is a graphic novel, Persepolis, by Marjane Satrapi. Came out in 2000, a sequel followed, Persepolis 2 in 2004, and a movie version in 2007. I've actually only seen the movie. Is this one that you've read?
I have, yes.
And what are your thoughts
Very
on
good.
it?
Yeah, it's very good. It's just kind of like this is what life is like here during Iran during the Islamic Revolution. Mm-hmm. Childhood and having to be more worldly than a lot of other people at certain ages. The ways we try to create normalcy, even if it's just putting up a poster in our bedroom and her having to leave her parents behind. Just a lot of different stuff in there.
Yeah, well, and speaking just from the movie's perspective, I mean, it's again, it's sort of like in All the Light We Cannot See with Werner, as you're seeing things happen through the eyes of a child, things that they don't understand, directions that they're being pushed that don't make sense to them, and they sort of just have to go along with it because they don't have the power to do things about it. The way that the character in this book has to adapt and see so much change in her life completely upended, from the time we start to the time we get to the end. It's illuminating, I think, to look in on that time in history. It's a very powerful, simple presentation of something that is very complex. And I think it really succeeds in that.
Yeah.
That's another one. I saw Mouse on a lot of lists and that sort of thing.
Yeah, Mouse is definitely one. Though it came out in 96, and I was having a hard time deciding where the line is.
I know.
For new classics, because I feel because some are like Harry Potter. Well, everybody now considers Harry Potter, the classic and stuff. So how far back are we going? But yes, Mouse is definitely one.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of the lists I was looking at too, it was giving books that were in 1950 and stuff, and I was just like,
yeah.
Well,
Entertainment Weekly has 100 books of the new classics, but it's from 1985, and I'm like, I don't think people are Neuromancer's a classic. I'm like, well, if it won the Hugo, that was the other thing, not picking books that won the Hugo and are now just forever locked in these lists.
Yeah, the majority of mines were from 2000 on. The oldest being We Were the Mulvaneyans.
Do you think, because Where the Crawdads Sing has been 89 weeks on the New York Times bestsellers list, do you think Little Fires Everywhere would also count now? 67 weeks on the list.
Well, I mean, there was a lot.
Do you think that's going to last beyond the show hype?
There was a lot of different factors to that, and I considered that one, but I ultimately didn't, because I don't know that has the legs to be popular, even 5 years from now. I think it's I think it's a really good book. I thought it was well written and very intriguing. But it's such a hard line to try to decide, like, is this going to stay around forever? And I feel like the passion around this book had already pretty largely died down to it just being you remember that book that came out a few years ago, until the show came back and brought it back to the top again. But I think that once the show goes down, I think that's going to be a pretty steep taper off the list.
Okay.
I don't think its reputation is going to go down. I don't think that it's going to be like, oh, that book. But I think that 50 years from now or whatever, I think Where the Crawdads Sing is probably going to be a little bit more in people's awareness than Little Fires.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know any of these,
Yeah. So young adult books that I'm sure are now, going to be being read in high schools forever or for a very long time. The Hate You Give, which is still on the New York Times bestsellers list hardcover. Yep. 169 weeks on this list. So The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, I believe, is going to unfortunately still be relevant for a very long time.
Yes.
Hunger Games by Susan Collins feels like the new, I wanted to say Hatchet, but also Lord of the Flies go-to now.
Yeah.
So I think The Hunger Games is, if you have to pick one John Green, it's probably going to be The Fault in Our Stars.
I'm not a huge John Green fan, so what do I know? It seems like Looking for Alaska is often the one that people are pulling forward. Do you think that's true, or do you think...
I feel like you could talk to John Green fans and they're all going to have their favorite, I think.
Yeah.
Eleanor and Park is good. That's 2012. It feels older, but maybe that's how you know something's a new classic. Yeah. I think that one is
I agree
a bit
with you.
younger.
I think Rainbow Rowell is a name that is going to be around in people's minds for a long time.
Yeah. I think younger, you're going to get the crossover in The War That Saved My Life are going to be considered classic, but those are also Newbery winners, so maybe they don't necessarily count. I'm not sure if Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl is one that's going to be counted as like a new classic, or if it's, in a couple of years, people aren't even going to remember what it was.
I don't know. I thought that book, when we read that, I thought that one felt a little dated as is, but maybe I'm a little dated. I don't know.
The Perks of Being a Wallflower came out in 1999, but, depending on how far you want to go back. If we're saying the past 20 years, then that one doesn't count. But yeah, I think...
That one kind of goes in waves, I feel like. I feel like you don't hear anything about that book for a while, and then a new group, a new generation has found it, and suddenly it's, it's on the top again. So, I could see that one. Heavy stuff in that book.
Yeah. All right. I was also thinking World War Z is, didn't win any Hugos or anything. That's, I think, always going... It's going to be a long time, I think, until another book, if ever, comes around. It's like, this is the definitive zombie book now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, genre-wise,
And Lovecraft Country is much newer, but I think, especially after the movie comes out, that movie or HBO, I can't remember which one it is. I remember Jordan Peele's producing it. Whatever new media Lovecraft Country comes out, more people will read Lovecraft Country, and I think it's not going to go away after, because I think
okay, interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good classic. Again, also very relevant in a lot of ways. Let's see. I was looking at some fantasy books I read, and I don't really know, outside of like award winners, it's hard to pick. For a while, I would have said The Name of the Wind, which is probably true, but I've soured on it since I finished The Wise Man's Fear.
Right.
But I think it's still one that like people are like, oh, you have to read this. And the same thing with like Brandon Sanderson's. I guess with him, you have to pick one and decide that is it. Like, is it his Mistborn book or is it the Way of Kings book? I don't know which one people would argue for more right now. Way of Kings. I don't know which one I would have given those to. And probably, did Ocean at the End of the Lane win a Hugo? Was that an award winner?
The Neil Gaiman book, right?
Yeah.
I think it won something.
Okay. But yeah, that one for sure. I think The Martian, it didn't win it didn't win the Hugo. Wait, yes it did.
Just to answer your question about The Ocean at the End of the Lane, it was nominated for the Nebula Award.
Okay.
Didn't win it, but it did win the Locus Award and it was nominated for a World Fantasy Award. The
Martian was nominated in 2016 for the John W. Campbell Award for Best New Writer.
Okay.
But I think that one is, the new. It's one we always come back to when we're thinking of like those kind of books Station 11, I don't know. I want to say Station 11, but I don't know how often it's being picked up today.
That feels a little bit more niche. That feels like kind of a, if you're in the know, sort of a book rather than...
Yeah, that might be true. Yeah. Have you read a Stephen King book lately that you think is like the new classic Stephen King?
I always come back to Bag of Bones. That's a more recent one, and I mean, I think probably it's 20 years old now, but I think that one is good to set aside, some of the best of the best of his, The Stand and
what's the Mr. Mercedes?
No, I wouldn't. I love Finders Keepers, but that's right smack dab in the middle of a trilogy that I think is bad. So I think that's going to hold it back. I would love to say 11/22/63 because I think it's an amazing book, but I don't think that'll stick around. I could see Bag of Bones, as being a sort of a latter-day Stephen King that has, some possibly Under the Dome, though I thought it was terrible. It's hard to say. Yeah. It's hard to say when they're so prolific. It's kind of like with Joyce Carol Oates. She has so many things to choose from.
Do you think Daisy Joan and the Six?
I guess it was a bestseller for quite a while, and it's won some awards. And the thing that has going for it is that it's timeless. It's not set in like 2010 or something like that. The style of it lends itself to be relevant anytime that you pick it up. So I think it's got, that's a good plus for a book having longevity. I think it will sort of depend on that author's trajectory from here on out, Taylor Jenkins Reid. But I think it's a contender, sure.
Then we should probably also decide whether or not Gone Girl or Girl in the Train are. What I think Gone Girl is probably gonna last. I don't know about Girl in the Train because I had a bad time reading that book. But I think
that's hard. That's hard because those feel so of their time. I think if anyone,
but so does something like the Da Vinci Code, and like people still read that.
Yeah, but I think people read the Da Vinci Code a little differently now than they did then. I think it's a little bit more popcorny now. Okay. I think if any from that genre were going to stick, it would be Gone Girl. I just don't know. Maybe. I considered it, but ultimately didn't put it on my list because I don't really think so. Okay.
Who else is like a big author that has written something that we should decide whether or not that's a classic?
Well, Leanne Moriarty, I think you could make a case for a Big Little Lies or something like that. It certainly was a phenomenon. I don't think like a Nicholas Sparks is going to make the cut.
I don't think he's had a new like classic in a while.
No.
So, sorry, Nicholas Sparks.
Yeah. I don't know. Right. I mean, I'm sure there's a million that we're missing. And ones that will surprise us.
Yeah.
Woo. All right. Well, that was interesting. Thanks for the topic, buddy. That was a good conversation. I do have some library news that I can share, so I'll mention that first. A YA for Adults book club that Kate and I are doing is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, and I went to get our copy the last time I was in the library. Couldn't find it anywhere. It says it's checked in. Couldn't find it anywhere.
So that's a new one.
That's rough. Yeah, it is relatively new. You gonna read this?
Sorcery of Thorns?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's my thing.
Not in your wheelhouse. So it's not my thing either, but it was I don't think it was the winner, but it was up for a Goodreads Choice Award in YA Fantasy last year. And that's Kate's genre, so we'll see how that goes. But that's going to be June 30th that we're going to be discussing that, most likely in a digital format as we have been. We are at this point, and things change so quickly it's hard to say, but we are looking at resuming some curbside pickup for library materials on June 29th. So we're working out the kinks of that right now, but that's the plan as we record right now, unless things change drastically. That's what we're planning on doing, so you can look forward to that, and we'll get out information on how to do that. But it's exciting. It's weird. It's weird that we've been shut down for as long as we have, like 75 days, something like that. Yeah. Pretty weird. It's weird to go in there now. The last time I was in the library, all the furniture was pushed out of the way and everything because...
For cleaning.
They've been working on doing the woodwork and that sort of thing, which you can't do when people are in there because of the fumes and all that. So it's looking great, but it just feels so strange to have the place be empty.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to whenever the time comes that we can safely get back to it, but we're certainly not going to rush it. Boy, next week, Eric, another milestone, episode 251.
Yeah, everybody is usually a huge fan of episode 251 because, it's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was no episode 0, right? So doesn't that Doesn't that make it so?
Yeah.
I can never.
Yeah, there was no episode 0. That's a good point.
Thank you.
And with all the off the books and interviews and quarantines that have been happening lately, I mean, we're in the 280s by now.
I think we are something like that. I think it's actually there's like 270 tracks or something. But
yeah.
Quite a few. Well, I think that's going to do it for episode.
Sorry.
Just a hair too soon.
Sorry. Yeah. This YouTube thing is being annoying.
Do you want me to do it again?
It's just called DJ Air Horn Sound Effect. It's got 7.8 million views.
Wow. Well, you're one of them. All right, let's see if we can get our timing. Are you ready?
All right, yeah.
Well, I think that's going to do it for episode 250. See, now you're on the other side of it now, though. That's the problem. Okay, all right.
It's a 17-second video.
Episode 250.
Hold on. No, wait.
Okay, sorry.
I'll tell you when I'm ready.
Okay, tell me. Yes, please.
Why can't I? Listen. We've only done this episode, so this isn't... Ugh.
Oh, boy.
Stop.
Hello.
Okay. Ready? Hold on. No.
Yes.
All right.
You ready?
All right. Yeah. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, say it.
Well, Eric, I think that's going to do it for episode 250. Thought we had it. Woo! Flawless.
Why don't you just edit out the space?
Okay, I will. All right. That's going to do it for episode 250.
You know what? I feel like we actually got it for that one.
I think it was pretty good. Yeah. The timing on that was just right.
Episode 251 when we look back on the Air Bud series.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Okay. We probably won't talk about the Air Buddies.
You know what, Eric? I just checked. There's no rule that says a dog can't host this podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, that's true.
So long, everybody.